Good morning again, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing another video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and that is the difference between leadership styles. There's kind of a couple of them, big ones, that is. There are subcategories, subclasses, and subcultures within those, but the two biggest ones I'm thinking of are independent leadership, that is, having a figurehead or a single point of leadership, versus having a committee style, where you might have a board of leaders and they vote on things with democracy. And I want to, in a few minutes, cover a couple of important differences here. There are obvious features to these different leadership styles, and arguably one of these isn't even about leadership, it's about popularity of ideas. That is, the one with democracy has a formal process, and if it has a board, it has a formal membership of representatives of the people beneath them, the organization itself, the employees, the customers, and so on, or whoever. And it gives an opportunity, first of all, to bad ideas so that they may be considered and proposed and sold, right? Bad ideas being something that isn't necessarily healthy or productive or useful, but might benefit a particular person or third party, right? So that's one difference. Another difference is that with the democratic solution, you have the opportunity to pre-select options. If somebody's presenting a ballot, so to speak, with ballot options for people to vote on, well, that's a great solution. If I can pre-choose, if I can control the ballot, heck, I'm going to tell you all about how great democracy is immediately. I'm going to say, man, you can't do without it. I'm going to tell you from the day you're born until today and beyond that democracy is the greatest thing ever, as long as I can choose before you do. Does that make sense? Conversely, I talk about actual leadership, that is, having a person with creative control, creative direction, and a singularity of vision and purpose, and efficiency, culpability, which is a big one, having some kind of responsibility, a person that you can actually point your finger at for credit or blame, whichever is appropriate. And here's the problem, right? You find that leadership's in short supply lately because we live in a culture dominated largely by threats and scare tactics, dominated by fear and consequences, where if you do good, if you follow the rules and you are successful, a good day means you don't hear anything. You stay out of trouble. That's your reward generally, and whatever you can earn on top of that, hopefully, in principle. But the problem here is obviously people are only going to do the bare minimum to stay out of trouble, if that's the goal, right? The bare minimum in this case is not necessarily pursuing leadership exposure where a person will have to be responsible for their choices, but instead chooses to delegate it to the committee, the board, so to speak. It's a single point versus distributed culpability. And let's be honest, when have you ever seen an entire board of people get prosecuted, or a whole corporation for that matter? Here's the grift, the magic trick. You can't blame a document, you can't blame a group, because groups are hypothetical. They exist only as an idea. A group is just, you can mentally rearrange it. You can have a collection of items in your hand and separate those items into multiple groups and then re-separate them, reorganize them without lifting a finger. So point is, groups being theoretical, hypothetical, you can't blame that stuff. You can't blame a document because it's a symbol. It represents something else. You can't blame something that isn't real. So when you have a committee, it's the illusion of leadership. When you have a committee, not only is it slow, is it potentially evil by bringing in toxic, self-serving objectives and agendas, but you can't actually hold it responsible. You can try. You can create that illusion as well. You can pile up your illusions one on top of the other with more and more documents, more and more symbols, more complexity, layers and layers of complexity, and say, well, it's been handled. You don't want to read through this 10,000 page contract. It's been handled. Our leadership is above reproach. We'll just leave it at that. Well, turns out, in conclusion, just before 5 minutes, every successful organization throughout history, including countries, including anything, has had some singular purpose and vision behind it. That singular being a person, an individual with a dream, with an objective that made sense enough that they were able to communicate it in a way that got people on board. Yeah, it's risky. It takes courage. It takes effort, courage, and accountability, right? Here's the problem. When you're living in a fear-monger society, no one wants to be accountable. There's your problem. Maybe lean a little less heavy on the consequences and roll out some carrots. I know they cost money. There you have it. It's cheaper to lean on consequences. It's cheaper to wave a gun in someone's face than to offer them a carrot. So you end up with no leaders. You end up with committees and the predictable, mediocre, at best, results that entail thereafter. Reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.